Why are you not fluent in Portuguese? At least yet. I'm asking this because I know that a lot of you have been studying Portuguese for some time, and many of you for a long period of time. And you studied grammar, you bought books, you listened to audios, to podcasts, to YouTube videos. You follow a bunch of people on Instagram that teach Portuguese or talk about Portuguese culture, etc. A lot of things that you have been doing to learn Portuguese. And your ultimate goal is to be fluent. And why do you want to be fluent in Portuguese? Because you want to have a life in Portugal with the Portuguese and be able to communicate with the Portuguese in everyday life, make friendships, etc. And you may think that you have been doing everything possible to actually learn, despite having so many responsibilities, because you are an adult, you have so many things to do. For real, we are all busy. So you always try to find a time to study, to learn, to practice Portuguese. But you probably already realized something that is very common to a lot of students, which is when it comes to speaking, when the time comes and you have to speak, then it seems like something is missing because you just can't speak. You freeze. And this is what I'm talking about today with you. And we need to talk about the concept of fluency. So first, let's clear this up. Fluency is not when you speak the language perfectly. There's a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas about what actually means being fluent. For some people, being fluent, it's when you achieve the most advanced level and you feel yourself and you are in your language abilities very similar to a native speaker. For most of people, I believe that this is their idea of fluency. They are just perfect and they do everything correct, like a native speaker. But the truth is not even native speakers speak correct. Okay, and if you look for it online, you'll find content, blogs and videos, and there are even books made by Portuguese to other Portuguese about how they can speak and write better Portuguese, because there are certain mistakes that the native speakers do. So mistakes are common. The other day I was at a library, and in the Portuguese section I found a book from a Portuguese teacher that teaches native speakers and school, etc. And the book was about mistakes that Portuguese native speakers usually do when they write and how they can improve those mistakes. So, if you think that a native speaker is not going to make mistakes because it's a native speaker, that's totally wrong. And if you try to start to analyze through this perspective other native speakers from all languages, you realize that even native speakers make mistakes, not just Portuguese speakers. Okay, so fluency doesn't mean perfection, and actually perfection just doesn't exist, because we are not perfect, although we want to do everything right all the time, but realistically this is not going to happen. And that also applies with language learning and your language skills, reading, writing, speaking and listening. Okay, so being fluent doesn't mean that you speak 100% perfectly. It doesn't mean that you know every single word in the dictionary. Even me, a native speaker and teacher, I don't know every single word in the dictionary. But that's not the point. Doesn't matter our language level, if we are natives or not, there will be always new words and new things to learn, even in our language. So, what actually means real fluency? It means ease, flow, and being able to communicate your ideas even if you make mistakes. So think about this. The Portuguese, as I said, they speak with mistakes. So why should you expect perfection from yourself? If native speakers are allowed to make mistakes, why won't you? I'm not saying that we should make mistakes on purpose, just for the sake of the mistake, but if we see natives as perfect as our reference to learn a language, and even them, they make mistakes, why we cannot make mistakes? We can. And think about the word fluency. The word itself, fluency, it comes from flow. What is flow? Flow is like the river or the wind. There's some continuity, it continues, it doesn't stop, it's with certain harmony is the flow. So when we speak, we should aim to have this flow. The flow. If I speak and I don't make mistakes, but I speak like this, do you think that I'm fluent? No. If I speak in a robotic way, even though the words are correct, even though the grammar is correct, I'm not fluent, because it's not flowing, it's not coming naturally, it's robotic. So think about the flow. And what doesn't help you to have this is when you are always thinking about what to say about the language. Did I pronounce this correct? Did I use this word correctly? I want to say this word, but I don't know if this is the right word. Maybe there's a similar word and this is the correct word that I should use. If you're overthinking, you won't be able to say a word. You won't be able to speak. Okay? Think about languages that you know very well. And for example, your native language. You don't think about it. And why don't you think about it? Because you have your internal library in this language, and you are so used to your language library that when you need to use the words, they just flow, they come to your mind naturally. And we'll also talk about what you can do to make this happen. The second thing that I want to warn you about is that a lot of students make this mistake. I need to study more before I start speaking. That's actually a trap. Just like in anything in life, you will never be ready to do something new, to do something that it's uncomfortable. You will never be ready for that. You just need to do it. If you wait for the perfect moment to start speaking, you will never speak. Because the first moment when you should start speaking, because it's just the start, is the beginning, you're not used to it, you didn't practice a lot because it's the start, you will feel uncomfortable. You'll feel maybe afraid of what people are going to think about you. So that feeling of being ready and feeling 100% comfortable is not realistic. Think about swimming. You learn to swim you say, I'm going to learn how to swim by reading about swimming. You will drown in grammar rules, in the swimming rules, before you ever float. Of course, the knowledge is important and is useful. If you read about swimming, you'll have a lot of insights, you understand a lot of things, but you cannot say that you know how to swim if you never do it yourself. So by definition, when we start doing something new, we don't really know how to do it, we don't feel comfortable, we are like, oh, did I did this right or not? So if it's just the start, we are not going to be proficient, we are not going to be very good. So it's actually the other way around. You don't get good and then you speak. You get good at speaking, by starting, maybe just mixing English and Portuguese because some words you really don't know or you don't remember. But bit by bit, you start doing something towards your goal and you actually use the language. That's why many learners stay stuck at the same level for years, because they just learn, they are studying about the language instead of living the language. I'm going to repeat this. They are studying about the language. They are not living the language. Studying about the language is not the same as studying the language and living the language. You need to prove to your brain that what you are learning is useful, you need it. So it cannot be just in the world, in the universe of the theories, in the theory universe. You need to put it into practice, and that knowledge needs to come to the real world, the real life. Okay? So what actually works to solve this? So one of the first things is that you need to be aware, you need to know that theory is not enough. You need to practice, you need to start speaking even if you don't feel ready. Okay, now I'm telling you that it works. If you thought that it didn't work, well, try it. Not just once, but twice, so you can have enough data to compare and you can actually say, oh, this works because I did this way. You really need to put into practice. And other thing very important is that you have a listening based input. That's the reason a lot of learners, if they read, they understand, but if they listen, they don't, because their based input, everything they absorb and consume in the language is just written content. If your study, if your practice is based on listening input, then the more Portuguese, the real Portuguese you hear, the more your brain will absorb naturally. And listening is absolutely connected with speaking. If you listen, you will speak. You need to listen a lot in order to speak. Okay? And by listening, you not only understand what the natives are doing with the sounds. For example, the Portuguese, they eat letters, they cut sounds, they change sounds. For example, when a word connects with the other word, the end of the first word changes. There are a lot of things that native speakers are doing when they speak. Not only the issue is not only the speed, okay? So when you listen, you get used to the language, you will be able to understand what they are saying, and you'll be able to speak, because what you are doing is mimicking. If I say that carro means car, you know, carro. If you learn for me, probably your accent in Portuguese will be similar to my accent, because you are learning from me. You are mimicking from me. So very important, listening a lot. The second thing is pattern recognition. When you start noticing how natives link words, they swallow sounds, they repeat expressions, you will start seeing how certain words often come together. For example, in expressions like todos os dias, todos os dias, every day. In English, we have just one word, right? Every day. But this word is made by every day together. In Portuguese, we have three. Todos os dias. Todos os dias. So when someone starts talking about their daily routine and they say todos, you can expect that the next words are going to be os dias. The same way, when I listen to someone talking about their daily routine and they say every, I can expect that the rest of the word or expression is going to be day, every day. And you do this with other words, other expressions, and chunks of information. Also for that, it's very important to listen. And the third thing, that is the last thing, but it's extremely important, is low pressure speaking exposure, which is when you practice in safe situations where mistakes don't matter. So your brain connects input to output. Okay, if you are way too nervous to speak, maybe you won't speak at all and you will switch to English or other language that the Portuguese speak. Or if you are in an environment in the small village in the countryside of Portugal and anyone there speaks English, then you will be forced to speak Portuguese. This will be other kind of pressure. Okay, pressure in a good way, because you are there, no one speaks your language, no one speaks English, and you need to communicate. You will use the Portuguese that you know, facial expressions, hand gesture. You will do anything and everything to communicate. Okay, and probably in this scenario you won't be that scared of being judged, because you are talking with speakers, to listeners that just speak one language. But if you are with a Portuguese that speaks 1, 2, 3 languages, maybe you will feel more intimidated. Okay, so in one hand we have low pressure speaking exposure when you are with a friend that understands you and supports you. And other scenario, for example, you go to a small village in Portugal and there old people don't speak English, so you'll be forced to speak the language. But in this scenario, I can tell that probably they won't judge you at all. They will be just a delight to have you there and to help you to communicate and whatever you need. So it's not about cramming, it's about training your ear and your tongue to the flow. Okay? You can speak fluently even with some mistakes. You don't need to be or to have a very advanced level to be fluent. For example, if you are a basic learner, a basic speaker of the language, you can say that in this level you are fluent. Not in the next level, but in this level you are fluent. And if you speak like this, you can't be robotic. Don't speak like this. If you can't speak like this, then you'll have this flow, this fluency. It's okay to make mistakes. The most important thing is to help people understand you when you speak. Okay? Be understood and understand. That's This is the most important thing that you need to believe, because this will prevent you from freezing. Okay, so that I always tell my students, which is let it flow, let it go. You know the movie Frozen? The song is let it go, let it go. And I thought, oh, let it go, let it flow. Let the language flow. Let the Portuguese flow. If you make a mistake and they don't understand, then you try again. You try to say that word again, or you help your listening. You ask for help. You ask your listener for help. Oh, I'm trying to say this, but I'm not sure. Can you help me with this? Okay? But when you want to say something, let it go, let it flow. Okay? That's how you are going to become fluent. Okay? This fluency, it's flow. I'm repeating this because it's very important. You need to flow in the language, no matter your language level. If you make mistakes, if you're not sure about what to say, just do it and just start, and by practicing you will improve it. Okay, so if you want to really if you really want to improve, you want to get better in Portuguese, if you want to be able to be flow, have this flow in Portuguese and understand what they are saying, I have my course, Understand the Portuguese course, and this was made exactly to help you understand the Portuguese. When they eat letters, they connect words together, and the sounds change. I will always also help you understanding why this happens and how you can be more confident in a conversation. Because if now you understand what happens with Portuguese about this not pronouncing letters, change the sound, all of this that happens in European Portuguese, and if you finally understand when the Portuguese speak fast, then you feel more confident in order to have a conversation. Because how are you going to have a conversation with someone if you don't understand what they are saying? It's not possible. You may know all the words, you may know and understand all the grammar, but if you don't understand what your listener, the people that you're talking to, if you don't understand what they are saying, then you cannot use everything that you have been putting so much effort in learning and memorizing. So if you are committed to learn and become fluent in Portuguese, and you already spend money and energy, and you invested so much, and in this journey probably you felt so frustrated so many times, don't waste everything that you have been doing learning Portuguese to the point that you are in front of a native speaker and you just don't understand what they're saying, because you skipped the most important step, which is listening. If you practice listening, if you know what happens when the Portuguese speak, that they eat letters and they changed some sounds, then you'll be able to have any conversation in Portuguese and through connection with the Portuguese. And if you want to be able to flow when you speak Portuguese, and if you want to be able to understand the Portuguese when they speak with their flow, which means eating letters, changing some sounds when words come together, and then a couple of words sound just like one word, all of this, I made a complete course. It's called Understand the Portuguese, because it will help you exactly with this. And in the end, you'll be able to have a conversation in Portuguese with the Portuguese, no matter how fast they speak. If you want to know more about it, you have the link below, and you also have a link for my WhatsApp if you have any questions or anything that you want to talk about with me, talk about Portuguese with me. Feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications to receive the future ones, and I will see you there. Ciao, ciao.